story that explains why Chinese people celebrate Chinese New Year the way that we do. And this story starts off with a monster. This monster's name was Nian. This monster was a big monster, and it's got giant horns coming out from the side of its head and giant eyes in the middle of its face and roars really, really loudly. This monster, though, lives far, far away from the village in a forest far away from the villagers. But just one night a year, Nian would come down from his house in the forest and sneak into the villagers and steal all of the villagers' food. But the thing is, the villagers don't want that, do they? It's their food and they want to keep it for themselves. But they were also really, really scared of Nian, so they had to come up with a better idea. And they decided that maybe if on the one night that they knew that Nian was coming, they would gather all of their family members into their houses and they would shut the door with a big bang and they would stay really, really quiet, then Nian wouldn't see them or hear them and he would just run away. So they decided to try that. That night, when they knew that Nian was coming down from the forest, they gathered all their families and all their friends into their houses. They shut the door with a big bang, and they stayed in there really, really quiet all night. And they waited, they waited, and they waited. And since they were so scared, they couldn't sleep, and they just sat there until the sun finally came up. And they opened the door and they realized, hey, Nian didn't come get our food. We were safe. So they knew that this strategy worked. And every year from that on the night that they knew that Nian was coming, they would do the same thing and gather all their families into their houses and stayed really quiet. And they did this for years and years. But as the years went by, the people grew lazy and they grew quite careless. They thought, you know what, Nian's not coming. We don't really need to go through all this trouble. It doesn't really matter. So that year, that night, Nian came down from the forest and he's been so hungry because he hasn't found food in so many years. And he goes and he creeps around the village trying to find food. All of a sudden, he heard a noise and it was coming from this big house. So he creeps over and he peeks into the window and he sees tons and tons of people gathered there. And they were gathered there for a wedding. And he thought to himself, where there must be people, where there must be a wedding, there must also be food. So he thought that he would go and he would kick open the front door and give a big roar and scare everyone away and steal their food. So he wanted to give this a try. He goes and he stomps over to the front door, he kicks it open, and just as he's about to give a big roar, he realized that there was a blinding light shining into his eyes, and he couldn't see anything at all, and he got so scared that he ran away. What was this blinding light, you may ask? This blinding light came from all the people, because at a Chinese wedding, people there usually tend to wear the color 红色, which means red. Everyone at Chinese weddings wears 红色, or they wear red. And this was a tradition in Chinese families. But since there were so many people gathered there and so many people wearing this bright red color, Nian got way too scared of it and it was too bright for his giant eyes that he couldn't see and he had to run away. So then now, the people knew that Nian, the monster, was scared of 红色, or bright color like red. So Nian ran away from the house, but he was still hungry. He smelled the food there, which made him even hungrier. So he walks around the village trying to find more food. And then all of a sudden, off in the distance, he hears a sound. And he looks over with his giant eyes and he sees people there. And he thought once more to himself, where there must be people, there must also be food. So he decides that he's gonna go over there and give a big roar and scare everyone away and steal their food. Let's see if it works out better this time. So he stomps over, and just as he's about to give a big roar and scare them off, he hears a loud noise. And this loud noise sounds a little bit like this. Whoosh! whoosh. What may the sound be, you might ask? Well, the sound comes from pao zheng, or fireworks. And this sound, if you've heard pao zheng or fireworks before, you know that it's a very, very loud sound just for our human ears. But Nian has giant monster ears, so the sound was even louder in his big ears, and he got so scared from the pao zheng, the fireworks sound, and the bright hongsek, the bright red color, that he got so scared of this village that he ran away, and he never came back to this village again. So now the villagers know that there are two things that Nian is super, super scared of. One is bright colors like hongsek, like red. And the second is loud noises like pao zheng or fireworks. So every year on the day that they think that Nian might come, they would celebrate, and they would do it using these two things. They would hang up bright homes, like bright red colored decorations, or other colors like gold and yellow, just because they're bright. And they would celebrate with loud parades and loud parties, and they would set off pao zheng, or they would set off fireworks, just so they would have these noises and bright colors to scare off Nian and have him never to come back again. And that is a story of Nian, the monster, and the origins of why Chinese people celebrate Chinese New Year the way that they do.